Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our 9 o'clock call. We'll say that tongue-in-cheek. Today, we're actually going to go through rates and basically how our rate system works, how to do entries, edits, deletes, and also, of course, show you how to do an upload. Most of the discussion will be as far as making sure you guys understand how the system actually works, because our system can be as simplistic or as complex as needed, depending on what the rate needs are, compensation needs are of any distributor. So I do have a little two background things I like to always go over first before I get into the actual web page itself. Now, we do have a document online that's available. It's a PDF document that does contain some of this information. I'm actually going to pull it up right now. The first thing I want to talk about is we use, in our rate system, we use what's called delivery types as part of our criteria. Now, me being exposed to it a long time, I tend to throw around the term delivery types a lot. However, I want to make sure that everyone's aware of what actually delivery types are. And basically, what we have done is we've categorized, in essence, the different types of deliveries that can occur out in, regular, normal newspaper delivery. Now, our standard bread and butter delivery tends to be home delivery, where we deliver to a single-family residential home. We toss the paper to the front walkway, front driveway, maybe take it up to the door. And all those types of deliveries, we came up with basically a 2-digit code, begins with the letter Z. We classify all those as Z1 delivery types. Now, you can see on the screen here, we have a couple other delivery types listed. These are some of the more common ones. We actually have many more than this. We got very specific in some of our categories. You can see we have the Z2 delivery type, would actually be bulk or single copy, where we're dropping off. Again, most common thing would be, a store or maybe a convention center, something like that. We have Z3, which is a bonus day, or in some cases also called a power day, where if a subscriber doesn't get a paper on a normal, say, Monday, maybe they're a weekend-only customer, but perhaps on a holiday, like this upcoming Labor Day holiday, the client, publisher decides they're going to get that person a free paper in hopes they'll increase their subscription frequency. And you see we have, NIE School for Z5, Sample Z6. We have our most common hotel delivery is ZC, which is basically a carrier would take a bundle of papers and drop them off at the front desk. In this case, the hotel would actually go and deliver them to wherever they need to be delivered. But because we actually categorize all our delivery types, it actually enables our system to compensate the carriers differently for each one. So, for example, the most common example I give is a home delivery in samples. Now, let's say on a specific route, you normally pay a carrier 25 cents for delivering a customer, a Z1 regular single-family home. And basically what happens is if there's ever a sample program that comes out, a lot of times publishers do not pay out the same amount for samples that they would for home delivery. Usually it's a free paper, so they can't afford to pay out as much. So rather than actually having to pay out 25 cents and possibly lose money when you're paying out compensation, our system will enable you to say, okay, for all the Z1 deliveries, pay that 25 cents, but we can as long as the samples come in as Z6, we'll actually be able to set a different rate to that. So maybe on the samples, you're only going to pay 15 cents. This way, the carrier is still making money, but obviously you're not losing money because the publisher is not paying you as much. Probably in your case, you are the publisher. So, but I think you understand what the premise is there. Basically, because of the delivery types, it enables our system to actually price things differently. And it's a way to actually maximize your compensation so that you can pay rates that are fair, but still make a profit, basically. And as I said, right here is just a listing of some of the most common ones. We do have other ones that we do use. But again, some of them are, I don't want to say obscure, but some of them are less common. Depends on your particular needs. But we do have them in the system. So as long as the subscribers are coming in with the right delivery type code, we can actually price and pay them different.
So we would have to transmit that code to you guys in our file that says these are samples and these are regular home delivery?
Yep, that's correct. Yeah. And again, usually what we find is the Z1 deliveries, obviously that's standard. I don't know how many sample programs you have. That one I don't have an answer for. But items where they might be bulk or hotel or schools, those ones we like to get the separate delivery item for. Now, usually I would think you guys know that from your addresses, your subscriber list. If we
Right.
code them as such, that enables our system to actually price them differently when it comes to compensation.
Right.
And just an input, just a little, the one exception to what Jim just said is bonus day. Our system can derive bonus days from your home delivery list based on, whatever rules you choose, which delivery maps or frequency of delivery you want the bonus day to go to. I don't know if you folks still use bonus days.
Yeah, we don't do many more. We don't do many bonus days right now. The only ones we really do bonus days for, we do a Thursday bonus day as we get into Thanksgiving.
Uh-huh.
Yep,
Usually
very
every Thursday from Thanksgiving to Christmas is a bonus day, but that's about it.
Okay.
Yes,
and we have the ability to do, if you exclude certain delivery maps from the bonus days, some publishers do, some don't. But we can zero in very specifically on what on which subscribers you want to send a bonus copy to. And the one exception to that rule is we can't derive the bonus day list if your system has the capacity to allow a subscriber to do a bonus day opt-out. If you have opt-outs, then the ASL would need to contain that opt-out flag so that we know how to process that.
Okay.
Okay, any questions on delivery types and our history lesson of why delivery types exist and why we use them? Everyone okay on that?
Good
Okay.
on that.
All right, now the next part of the system that our compensation system uses as far as determining how to pay out compensation, we use what's called a rate level system. Now, what our system does is, as I mentioned, it could be as simplistic or as complex as possible that you need it to be. For instance, you could actually have a very simplistic compensation where everybody in the warehouse, no matter what routes, what publication, what day of the week, everyone makes a flat rate of 25 cents. And that would be a very simplistic compensation module. You would really only need one line item of data in our system, and it would pay out appropriately. But you can add certain criteria to that. For instance, again, the system will actually determine whether you add the delivery type, the product, the route number. The more criteria you add, the more detailed that specific item will be. So what will happen is our system divides that up into levels. You can see we have a little pyramid here on our screen. The lowest level is rate level 10, where you can see we have the most criteria there as far as product, delivery type, route, client. And as you go up levels, you can see the criteria gets a little bit less. And what our system will do is when it goes to search for a rate for any subscriber, that subscriber, obviously we know what product it is, what routes, what delivery type, so forth and so on. So the system will start looking at the rates and determine, it'll start at basically rate level 10 and say, do I have something that matches in our system? If it doesn't, in effect, it goes to rate level 20 and level 30 until it actually finds a rate that it can apply to the system. So there could be cases where there may be multiple rates that could apply to a particular subscriber in order to pay out compensation. And again, if the system does happen to find multiples, the lowest rate level will always win. Now, that's not always a clear explanation to everybody, so I do have a little Excel file that I made to help demonstrate that a little bit clearer. Rate demo. There we go. Explode this up a little bit so you can see. Basically, on the right-hand side here, from columns G through P, I have basically some criteria. We just put in some rates based on Monday through Sunday delivery. And we have what we call the different rate levels. Now, you can see each rate level has some criteria in it. For instance, on level 10, we have the delivery type, product, and route all present. And on level 30, we just have delivery type and product. Level 40, we have delivery type and route. So we have these different rates listed over here. As I mentioned, whenever a subscriber comes in, the system will look at the subscriber comes in with Z1 with the product code RECD on this route. System, in effect, will look to see what actually rates will apply. And based on that criteria. Now, on this first example here, level 10, 3 of the criteria out of the 3 match. So in a sense, that's a possibility, as is level 40, where 2 of the criteria match. So this is a case where you can look at it from 2 views. You can either say the system will start at level 10. If it finds an exact match, it will pay out. Or you can look at it as saying the system actually finds 2 rates that are eligible. It has to determine which one to pick, in which case it will pick the lower rate level. So in this case, because the criteria came in with all 3 matching, that is the lowest rate level that matches. So in this particular subscriber, the carrier would get paid 21 cents daily or 25 on Sunday. Now, in our next example, we had a Z1 delivery type product IBDL and the same route number. Again, looking at the criteria, in this case, nothing matches. And the only match we have that fulfills the criteria would be the level 40 rate. So in this case, this particular product on the same route, rather than paying that 21 cents and 25, in this case, it would actually pay 15 cents and 18 cents. And we do have rare occasions where, again, not very often, but depending again on how complex the rates need to be, the system may have 3 or 4 matches. I gave an example here of 3 where the system actually has a choice of picking between the level 10 at 14 cents, level 30 at 12 cents, or level 40 at 15 cents. And again, this is a case where based on the rate levels, whenever it has an option like that, where there's multiples to pick from, it will pick the lowest level. So this particular subscriber here, based on product DBWK, would actually pay out the 14 cents. So that's actually how our system works. Again, it does work on the rate levels, and the more detailed the criteria is, the lower the rate level will be. And as I said, that one example I gave where you pay everyone in the plant, no matter what route, what product, that's actually, I believe, considered level 70 or 80 as far as that goes. So that's actually how the rate levels work.
So what would you do if it picked out the wrong rate level?
Well, the system, how to say that, it won't actually pick up the wrong rate level unless the data is entered wrong. And when we get into the actual system itself, I'll show you some examples of some of the real life data that we have, so you can kind of see what will actually happen.
Okay.
But yeah, but basically it is possible to actually, if somebody didn't have the appropriate level 10, if they wanted to pay 14 cents for this one product, if they didn't have the appropriate level 10 rate in there, what would happen is the system wouldn't find a level 10 rate. It would end up going to the next level and pay out level 30, which is 12 cents. Now, in that case, again, in this particular scenario here, the carrier would actually get paid less money. Whereas, you know, as opposed to 14 cents, they only make 12 cents. And again, if it wasn't a level 10 and level 30 here, then the system would pay out 15 cents. So it's not so much that the system pays out the wrong rate because of bad data, so to speak, or can't find it. It's usually, when it finds the rate, this is where a lot of people have trouble with the setup. When it goes to search for the rate, you have to realize that it starts at the lower level and works its way up. So you have to determine to make sure you have the appropriate levels in there to make sure the right rate does pay out. Let me go into the live system here, and once we see some live data, it may become a little more self-evident. Okay, so we have our screen up here. Okay, now our rates are under DSP Comp. We have rates. You have a choice of either rate entry or rate upload. In this case, we're actually going to do a rate entry. When the screen comes up, you do have some filters that will actually be used. We have 2 radio buttons. We have 2 sections, pay by copy and pay by address. We'll go over pay by address a little bit later on in the call. You would select the plant. Again, if there's only one plant available, it would always default to that. If there's more than one plant, obviously you have to select the right plant number. Now you can look at specifics as far as products, route, delivery type, and effective date. You can set all those filters as needed. In this case, I'm going to pull up all the data. Just do a quick search. And you can see this plan, this demo plan has a very simplistic rate system set up in it. You can see we do have what's called some level 10 rates. You can see here, right here with the rate level. We have delivery type, product, and routes, and then we actually have the rates listed right there. Now, if I actually pick a specific route number, we'll pick the EM001 route, go search. Basically, this is a case where this is how the rate setup would be for this particular route. Now, whenever a product comes in, if a product comes in on this route, on the 01 route, and it's a DOSG product, the system will know to pay it out 21 cents. Basically, it's the lowest level, level 10. It found an exact match for the BOSG and that route, so it knows to pay out 21 cents daily and 25 on Sunday. If another product in the plant comes in, for instance, let's say we have that IBDL product. It doesn't find a match for product, so ultimately it would go through the system. Ultimately, in that case, it would actually stop at level 40 because basically it would be a Z1 delivery on that route. The product's blank, so that's kind of like a catch-all, what we call default rate, meaning it will catch all the items that don't have a product listed on it. And in that case, it would actually pay out 11 cents and 15 cents. And we do have a rate in here for the NYT product. Again, it's level 30 rates, and I'll explain what that means in a second here. As far as the rates, we kind of give them generic terms to help people realize what they are. That would actually pay out 10 cents and 12 and a half. So basically, in most cases, what most scenarios will involve as far as a specific route, most routes will have a level 40, what we call a default rate listed on it, meaning it's a catch-all rate that will catch any type of delivery type, Z1, it will actually catch, everything, including all products. Now, there are a lot of times where that may be enough for your route scenario. You may determine that if you have a route, you want to pay every product on that route the same amount, no matter which product it is. And that's fine. If that's the case, you'll just need a one level 40 entry. However, let's say you have 3 or 4 publications that are delivered in a warehouse. You want to pay 3 of them at this 11 cent rate, but again, you have the product BOSG that you do want to pay at a different rate. Well, that's a case where, again, the way to enter into the system for this route is you would have a level 40 rate listed that catches all the other products, and then you would have one entry at level 10 for that specific product that you would want to pay differently for. And again, you could have as many level 10 rates as you go on. If you have 15 products in the plant, maybe 3 or 4 of them you need to pay differently than the level 40. So when we actually go through with any distributors as far as setting up their rate system, we usually ask questions as far as how do you actually pay your routes? Are all the routes, all the products on the route paid the same? If the answer is yes, then chances are they just need a level 40 rate. If they say, well, no, we have some products that pay differently, the next question we ask is, okay, you have 10 products in your plant. How many of them actually pay differently? Is it one product, or do all 10 products pay a different rate? If all 10 products pay a different rate, at that point, the best way to go would be to actually make an entry, 10 entries at level 10, one for each publication. Again, in this scenario here, if only one product was paid differently and there were 10 total, rather than make 10 entries into the system, it's very simple to just make 2 entries. The one for the specific product that pays differently, and the other level 40 default rate that actually will pay all the other 9 products out. Did you guys follow all that? Was I clear in that explanation, or do you need me to go in a little more detail?
No, I think we're good, or at least I am.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, and that's like you said. So usually that's usually the times to your question earlier, Mark, about what if the system pays out the wrong rate. Usually what happens is someone will actually mean to pay out something differently, but put it in at the wrong rate level. So the system might, pay out a level 10 instead of a level 40. And that's
right.
Where usually, like I said, the system will pay out something. Now, there is a chance that we might not have a combination. If it doesn't find a combination, there will be no compensation listed on that for that particular product. And again, that will be evident when the compensation reports come out. The compensation itself will show up as 0 for that particular product delivery type combination. So.
Okay. So just as a recap, I know in most cases in Atlanta, they pay one rate for every product differentiated by route.
Okay. Then most likely what they will be doing is they will have level 40. They will have a level 40 entry for each for a Z1 delivery for each route. Yes, that's most likely. It sounds like that's a scenario.
Now in Austin, they would have probably their TM or their SLT product would probably be at a lower rate, and it would also be route specific, but that one product would probably pay at a lower rate.
Right, exactly. And that's where, again, that's a case where, depending on how many of them they have, that's where you have to use a judgment. Part of what we do is when we analyze stuff, we usually like to make our rate entries with the least amount of data line items we can. As I said, the system would work either way, whether if I could put in this right here where there's 2 line entries, level 40 and level 10, or I could put in 10 level 10 products. The system will work either way. It's just a matter of how much data is in the system.
Right.
And that's not really critical. It won't slow down processing time, but what it can affect is if ever you go negotiate a different change on rates, well, you might only have one line item to change as opposed to 10. So it goes a little bit quicker if you have to do any kind of editing.
Right. But if they delivered 10 products and they paid a different rate for each product, then they would basically have to enter 10 line items.
Correct. Yep. And that's something, like you said, we can, usually we kind of do like a little bit of a discovery meeting, just like you're saying there. The Atlantic group, sounds like, like you said, most of them are going to be level 40. We would kind of ask those questions to kind of feel out in general how they actually set up their rate structure. We don't really need the specifics. I don't need to know the Route 1 pays this right off the bat. But that tells me that, okay, to your point, most of them in Atlanta sound like they'll have mostly level 40 rates. And then again, I'm sure there'll be a few exceptions to that. And that's a nice thing that, again, you can set it up so that level 40 is, the general rate, and then just manage the exceptions with level 10 rates. That's certainly an option there. So,
okay.
But that's basically how everything works there. And like I said, if I go back to the all here, and we'll do a search, you can see in this plant, we actually had, like I said, I put in 3 level 10 rates. We have 8 routes that we set up with, different amounts. Now, we do have what's called a level 30 rate, which what we term, just as we term the level 40 rate, generically speaking, we call it the default rate or catch-all rate. We do have level 30, which is a little bit lower than level 40, but that actually pays out at what we call the plant or service company level. And basically, based on the criteria where it says Z1 in product, there may be a scenario where, let's say you have a once-a-week magazine that the plant delivers. And based on whatever they're making from that, they decided, hey, we just have to pay on this one particular product. For every route, we just have to pay the 10 cents. It doesn't matter what route it's on. For this particular once-a-week magazine, we're going to pay 10 cents. Now, again, the system, you could put in a level 10 entry for 10 cents for each one of your routes, or we have what's called a plant level entry, which is the level 30. This particular entry here actually applies to all routes. You can see the route field's blank. It just deals with product and delivery type. So just like we have something that has product, delivery type, and route, we also have what we call plant level that, again, that's a scenario where you use that. If you had some sort of one magazine weekly, or again, it doesn't even have to be weekly. It could be a daily item where maybe that particular publication, you just don't make as much money as a distributor, so you can't pay out the same, as you would a level 40 default rate. So we do have that, and again, that just helps limit sometimes the amount of data entries you have. So again, if I had, again, the scenario where every route pays differently, so I have level 40 entries at every route, but then I have this one publication, NYT, that whenever it comes out, it doesn't matter what route it's on, I have to pay a lower amount. Well, again, I could put in level 10 rates, and I could put in, whatever, 10 entries if there's 10 routes, or I could put in one plant level entry, and just, this way it has everything pay out the same for every route, no matter what it is. Again, just a matter of efficiency. Again, less data. If ever there's a change, again, it's easier sometimes to just edit one line entry rather than 10. Just repeat it. So.
Okay.
All right, so that's the basic how the route structure and system pays out. Now we're actually going to get into the how to actually edit, add, delete particular items. So basically, you can see right here, based on my search criteria, I do have all the information pulled up right now. You can certainly, again, change the filters accordingly. If ever you need to edit a specific rate, for instance, let's say this level 30 rate right here, I actually wanted to edit. I simply, in the middle, you can see right in the middle between the route and the day of the week, it's a checkbox. I simply put a checkbox in there. And I can select multiple ones at once. Again, depends on what you're planning on editing and what you're planning on accomplishing. So I can extract this particular item to the edit page. A new window opens up. First thing you want to do is up top, you can see the current criteria as far as rates, rate level, delivery type, product, route, so forth and so on. On the right-hand side, you can see the current information and the effective from and effective to date. And we have our radio buttons here as far as edit, delete, or no changes. In this case, I'm going to go into edit mode. Now, once I go into edit mode, the screen doesn't blink or anything. You just have to move the radio button. Down below that, basically, I have the same type of thing. I have these headers up here. I have headers down here, which I can change the criteria on. For instance, if I wanted to change this product, I could certainly change the product. I could change the delivery type if I need to, or route. In this case, let's just say I was going to, instead of paying the 10 cents and 12.5 cents, let's say I was going to actually decrease that to 9 cents. put in that Monday, and we'll do a quick copy and paste for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and maybe on Sunday I'm now going to pay 11 cents. So now you can see basically you kind of have almost a before and after. Here up top is what it was before. Here's what you plan on entering. And again, I'll give some examples of changing the items on the left in a little bit. But if we're just changing this particular one rate, we would just simply click on the change button. Now, we do have a couple what we call validation messages, just kind of warnings. The first one says that the Sunday rate you entered is the highest rate. Now, historically speaking, most deliveries pay more for the Sunday paper than they do daily, because in most cases, the Sunday paper has more sections, it's thicker. So generally speaking, the Sunday rate is the highest in most cases. That may or may not hold true for your distributors, but that's what we found in our business, that Sunday rate's usually the highest. So we kind of have a little check there just saying, hey, that Sunday rate is the highest, because that may say, if you see a message there saying Tuesday rate's the highest, you may think, well, why am I paying more money on a Tuesday newspaper than any other day? Kind of a little warning message in case you did a typo or perhaps, a decimal point, you hit the decimal point in the wrong spot there. We also had a warning message that shows if a rate is over $1. Again, not very common, but there are some very rural routes where if you are paying copy rate pay, and the route happens to be 80 miles long but only has 50 copies because it's very, very rural, the copy rate pay could actually be over $1. Again, normally that's not, it's kind of standard, but again, it's just kind of a warning message just to help avoid any kind of typos or user entry errors, basically. Now, obviously, if there is a problem, you can certainly click on retry. In this case, we're going to click OK. Now, it does ask me for an effective date. You can actually, with these rates, you can actually backdate the rates into a previous pay period as long as you haven't closed the pay period out. Or if this is a negotiation for an upcoming rate, meaning that, a week from now you're telling the carrier you're going to either lower or raise their pay, you can actually future date it. Now, again, if we use the calendar, you can see if I actually go back in time, you can see right here how it's from August 5th. You can see the lines go through there. Basically, what the system's telling me is I can actually right now go back to August 7th and put in these rates. Now, I don't think we closed out the pay period, so that's probably why we have the 7th to the 20th open still. So in theory, I could actually go back, since I didn't close my payroll. If I made a mistake and forgot to put in a rate, I could go back and actually change this rate to August 7th. Once I rerun my payroll, then the new rate would come into play and the new calculations would show up, and thus the carrier would be paid correctly. So you can actually go back in time as long as the pay period's not closed. Or in this case, let's say this is a future negotiation. I'm going to make these rates effective on September 4th. Sorry, choose September 4th. Click OK. Now you have a very useful validation screen, this is what we always stress to people. Once you make changes, this is the screen you want to pay attention to. Top part shows what it was before. Again, we have 10 cents, 12.5. You can see the effective date was in March. Anything that you're changing is going to be highlighted in red. In this case, we changed all the rates, so they're all highlighted in red. And then you have your after changes. This is where we tell people to pay attention for. You see that the rate of 10 cents and 12.5 cents is actually going to be paid out up until September 3rd, meaning those rates that's what the system's going to calculate. Effective on 9/4, this is what the system's going to end up doing from that point on, for 9 cents and 11 cents. So you actually be able to see the change as far as the rate amounts and the effective date to make sure it is actually what you want. And as long as that's the case, you will click on the confirm and save. Obviously, if you find a mistake or something doesn't look right, simply click on the reset button, as we like to call it, the reset all, and it'll take you back to the rate edit page. In this case, we're going to click on the confirm and save. Now we get a message saying my delivery rate was successfully saved. We click OK. And it takes us back to the rate page where we started out. Now, the one thing to be mindful of, we do get this question occasionally from distributors after they make a change like this. If you can see here, the item we just changed, the first thing they might do is look and panic and say, wait a minute, I just changed that to 9 cents and 11 cents. What's going on? Well, what actually is happening here, you can see the effective date is from 9/3. Our filter currently is showing the rates that are in effect from 8/30. So right now, these rates are still in effect until 8/30 because the change doesn't go into effect until 9/4. If I actually change my filter up here to 9/4 and do my search, you can see we actually see the new rate, with the new effective dates right there. It's 9 cents and 11. So again, sometimes we get that question where people make a change and say, hey, I didn't see it happen. They sometimes forget to look at the effective date or change the filter up top. So just something to be aware of if you happen to get that question. Okay, any questions how to basically edit a rate as far as that goes?
I'm good.
All right. All right, so now also we can actually add or delete a rate. In this case, I'll add a rate first. Let's say I wanted to add a rate for the level 30. Let's say I want to add a rate not only for the Z1 delivery type, but let's say I want to add a rate for the Z3 delivery type also. So now if you're adding something, again, you are going to go to the edit page. It seems kind of, counterintuitive. Editing. It's, in its essence, adding and editing are really the same thing. What we recommend is if you are adding something, you pick a starting point item that's pretty close to what you're going to do. For instance, if I plan on adding a level 30 rate, it's very simple to actually start and pick a level 30 rate as my starting point. So we're actually going to pick that same one again. We're going to extract it to the edit page. Now, again, there's no add button, but again, in effect, we're going to actually do an edit because we are going to make some changes here. So my change I'm planning on making is I'm going to add a delivery type. Right now, it's currently Z1, so in this case, I would go over to the left-hand side down here, and I would choose a different delivery type. In this case, we're going to choose Z3. Now, again, if I want to make rate changes, I can certainly do so. Maybe I want to change the Sunday rate, and I want to actually make it 13 cents on Sunday. Again, if I'm not changing anything else here, I can either put in the 9 cents again if I wanted to, or I can just leave it blank, and the system will know that I'm not making any changes. But again, in this case, right now, we're going to be changing the delivery type, and we're actually going to be changing the Sunday rate. So again, I click on the change button. Again, I get a little message saying the Sunday rate's the highest. The effective date, again, we'll make this effective 9/4. And now we have our before and after screen. So up top is our before. We have a level 30 Z1, and you can see our rates exist there. The items I'm changing, again, are highlighted in red. We're changing the delivery type. You can see now this spot here actually does say add, whereas before on the other screen it actually said edit. So the system knows, hey, I have something new here. It doesn't exist. I'm going to be adding. And the only rate we're changing is actually the Sunday rate, so that's why that's highlighted. And then our after changes, again, this is the case whenever somebody goes to add a route, they always panic thinking, well, if I started out with that other one, how do I know I'm not deleting it? Well, the way you know you're not deleting it is because you'll see it's still listed here. We still have that level 30 Z1 rate. You can see the effective date is still 9/4 to 12/31/99.99. So that rate's still into effect. But we have our new rate right below it, the Z3, again, where we have our differences. The one for the Sunday rate, again, it does go into effect for 9/4. Again, same thing. If everything looks okay, you click confirm and save. If not, you would hit the reset button and reset. In this case, we're going to confirm and save. And you can see because our filter set for 9/4, our rate starts on 9/4. This is the entry I just made right there. Okay. All right. Any questions on how to add an item?
Good.
Okay. Now, in theory, you can actually edit multiple things at once. For instance, if I actually wanted to extract both of those items to the edit page, and if I plan on I can edit them both at once. The criteria, though, would be if I edit them, I have to plan on making them the same amounts. So if I wanted to edit both of these, and I wanted to change the Monday through Saturday on both of those entries to 10 cents, I could do that. I could put in 10 cents. Oops, I put in 19 cents, excuse me, 10 cents. There we go. And I could change that Monday through Saturday. Now, if my intention was to make the Z1 change to 10 cents and to make the Z3 change to 11 cents, I would not be able to edit these at the same time because basically I'm saying put both of these in edit mode and assign this value to whatever I have in edit mode. So you can edit same item, multiple items at once as long as you're changing them to the same amount. So in this case, let's do a change. Again, we'll make the effective date 9/5, just the day after. And again, you'll see here we have our before. Everything was at 9 cents. Our change we're planning on making, we highlighted Monday through Saturday. And then at the after change screen at the bottom, you can see we actually have each line item listed. We have 2 line items for Z1, saying that the one rate of 9 cents daily is only in effect really for one day from 9/4 to 9/4. And then you see the new rate will go into effect for 9/5. That's for the Z1. And then we have the same screen for Z3, showing the exact same changes. And again, if I want to change that, just simply click confirm and save. Now again, since I'm filtered for 9/4, you can see the rates didn't change, but you can see the end date is effective to 9/4. So if I switch that to 9.5, I would see the new rates going. All right, any questions on adding multiple items? All right, next up then, we have the option of deleting an item. Let's say, for example, I did not want to have this product-specific rate here on this route any longer. So basically, by deleting this rate, you can see on this 3 route, I have a rate of 13 cents and 17 cents for our catch-all default rate. But I'm paying this one particular product, the OSG, 24 cents. Let's say I want to get rid of that. I simply check it, extract it to the edit page. In this case, we put it in delete mode. Now, once you put it in delete mode, there's really nothing else you need to do other than hit the change button. The system knows you're deleting. It's just going to ask you for an effective date. Now, the effective date is when you want the rate to stop paying out. First day you don't want it to pay out. So let's use the example of I don't want to pay the rate on Monday. I want the rate to stay into effect on 9/3. I want it to be deleted on 9/4. And a lot of times, this is another common question we get from distributors, is when they go to delete something, they're not quite sure what date to put in there. Sometimes they're worried, well, is it my day soon or day late? Again, the next screen will show them exactly what they need to know. Again, your before changes, the rate's in effect from 3/6 to 12/31. In this case, you're actually deleting it. And the after changes, you can see right here where it says effective date. This means the route's going to be ineffective until 9/3, which means any customers that come in with this BOSG code on 9/3 will pay out the rate. After that, then this rate will no longer be valid and the system will not acknowledge it anymore. Again, you can delete line items, multiple line items at once if you want. Again, the criteria is as long as they're the same effective date that you want to delete them, you can do them all at once. If you have different effective dates for different rates, then you would have to do them separately depending on how many different dates you actually have. So in this case, we'll click on the confirm and save. And you see, since we're filtered for 9/4 up top here, that rate on the 3 route no longer shows. If I actually went back one day in time, I would actually be able to see that rate right there. And you can see the effective date does go to 9/3. So this also just, again, obviously it's pretty obvious, but I will mention it. If ever somebody needs to research rates as far as what they formerly were, all they need to do is change the effective date and they will actually see what rates were in effect at any given time period. So a year from now, if somebody determines, what was the rate a year from now, maybe I need to bring that back for some reason, they can actually set the filter for a different date and they would actually see what rates were in effect on that particular day. Okay, that's pretty much the pay by copy and how to actually edit, add, or delete rates. Now, we also have an upload feature that we use. This is very similar to what we went over yesterday as far as the adjustment upload. If we actually go to our rates, rate upload page. Again, the upload page itself is very simplistic. You would simply browse for the file. You can see we do require that it's a CSV file. You do actually have to choose your effective date on the file here itself. And then, of course, you would upload the file and you would get a validation screen where you would review it first. If everything looked okay, then at that point you would click confirm and save. Now, just like with the adjustments uploads, we do have a file that, actually, I believe I need to send you the adjustment file for this today, but we will send you the rate file. This, expand a little bit here. This is an example of the rate files that we use. What we actually did is we actually put in the different types of levels that are most commonly used for the pay by copy, levels 10 through 70. And basically for the upload file, you can see here in rate level 70, there's really no delivery type product around at all. You can see as you start going down in the levels, it starts actually adding it. Level 50 and 60 have just delivery type. Level 30 and 40, you can see we have delivery type or route, delivery type or product, and then of course the highest level, level 10, we have all 3 types here. Now I will explain the route group to you at the end of the call. That's an advanced feature, not very common, but I will let you know what it is in case someone does. Now also on this rate example file, we're going to go through the pay by address section. I have 2 examples of the most common pay by address selections that we have. So again, just people can see what they actually are and how they actually would look to be entered. So in this case, let's say we wanted to actually put in a level 30 rate for that New York Times. So we have a Z1 in there, we have a Z3. Let's say we want to put in a Z6 rate. So basically, since this is a CSV file, I'm actually going to keep line 4. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to highlight 5 through 11, and we are going to delete the sheet rows and also delete rows 2 and 3. Now, the first we want to do is do the plant number. Now, this is a case where, as I mentioned yesterday, the plants do have to be 4 characters, so you do need a leading 0. You need to put in the delivery rate type, whether it's a pay by copy or pay by address. Those will be the 2 choices you have, PBA or PBC. In this case, we're going to do PBC. Delivery type, we're going to make this a Z6 for our test. Products, we're going to have NYT. We're going to leave the route blank. Now, you do have to fill in whether you're going to add, edit, or delete. In this case, you have to know beforehand if you're adding something, you have to put the word add in. If you have something existing that you're planning on editing, you do have to put in the edit word. And let's leave it at 11 cents. We'll leave the criteria here, Saturday and Sunday 0. Now, the scale ID is not very common used with pay by copy. Again, it is more of a pay by address functionality, which, as I mentioned, I'll explain in a few moments. This last column here, column P, that's there for reference purposes. Again, we actually don't want to include that in the upload file. So we're actually going to delete the sheet column. So we don't want column P there. So basically our file will look like this. Now, just for the sake of getting an error message, unintentionally, I am going to put in the plant number as 052. Again, we know it needs to be 4 characters, but I'm going to put it in 3 characters. We'll save this as a CSV file. And we'll answer yes. We'll keep it in the format. And now we'll actually close this out. Okay, we don't need that Excel file anymore. So now we go back to our Dart screen. So again, now I want to browse for the file. I actually forgot to rename this, so I overwrote my example file. So this would be rate example file CSV. My effective date, again, let's say I want to go into effect for 9/4. Again, you can see here, we do have dashes through certain numbers of the calendar, meaning you can go back so far. But again, you can only go back so far based on the pay period being closed, so forth and so on. In this case, we want to make it effective 9/4. Now, the effective to date, we do usually list it to that 12/31/99 date, just because most of the time our rates stay in place. We don't want to have to enter them over and over again every week. So we make them go out way into the future, so we don't have to worry about changing them. So again, that's something, if ever you did have a temporary rate that you knew you were putting in, you can certainly change it. You know, use the calendar to click on today's date, and then this gets you back into this century, so to speak, and then certainly use the date accordingly. In most cases, though, we usually keep the date at 12/31/99. Now, I'm going to click on the upload button. Now, I do expect an error message. And as you can see here, we do have an error message. The errors came up in red. I don't have any button that says submit or confirm. So basically, we know we have an error here and have to correct the file. Now, you see the error shows up basically pretty much first line, plant is invalid. This is, again, the most common other item you get when people do rate uploads is they forget the plant has to be 4 characters. Or in some cases, I mentioned yesterday, the route values, if they do have a route with leading zeros, if it's a 7-character route that has 2 leading zeros on it, they do need to upload that same 7-character route in the upload. Otherwise, the system is going to try to match up a 7-character route with a 5-character route. It's going to say it's not valid. So again, if we do have something valid, ultimately we have to reset the page, and it's a simple matter of going in and correcting our upload file. In this case, I should just open it up with the text editor here real quick. Again, I need a 4-digit plant. So we'll just put a 0 in front of it. Close it out. And if we go back to my upload page now, again, we'll select the file. Great example. Select our date of 9/4 and go to upload. And now you can see I have no red errors. You can see we actually do have a confirm and save or cancel button. Now, again, there are a couple warning messages that do pop up. Again, most of them are kind of like the validation messages you say. There is a message saying that you're not using the route pay group, which was left blank in the upload file. And since it wasn't used, it defaults it to the plant value. And again, I'll explain that in one second what that is. You see we have some other things. There's no duplicates. Everything's okay. If you were actually doing a Sunday rate change, you might see the little warning message saying Sunday rate's the highest. Again, it's just a validation, just so you can see that, hey, everything looks okay. And there are a couple warnings there just in case to help make sure you confirm everything correctly. Again, if we click on confirm and save, you can see our delivery rate was successfully uploaded. And if we actually went back to our rate entry page, rate entry, and we filtered for 9.4 to the search, you can see this is the line item we just uploaded, the C6 entry right here. Okay, any questions on how to upload rates? All right. Okay, now that route K group that I mentioned, our system, we do have a couple rate levels, rate level 20, rate level 50. They're not very common, but they are something that may be useful. You can actually create what's called a route group, meaning, let's say, for example, you have a drop area. There's about maybe 4 or 5 routes that are 30, 45 minutes away from the main warehouse that you actually run shuttle papers out to as a drop location. Maybe on those routes, just because they're so far away, you determine that you're going to pay the same amount on those particular items, or excuse me, on those particular routes, the same pay rate on each route. So rather than making 5-line entry, you can actually create a route group containing those 5 routes, and then just make 1 entry for them. This way it applies to all 5 of them. Again, it's not very common, as you mentioned, Mark, most of the distributors tend to have, each route tends to have its own unique rate. So it's not very commonly used, but there are situations where it may come in handy, where again, if they are paying a group of routes the same and don't anticipate a lot of changes on those routes, meaning that, you know, I have 6 routes there now, am I going to add 2 routes later on and then subtract 2? If it's kind of a stable environment where those routes are always going to be there and always going to pay the same amount, that route pay group may come in handy. So again, it's just a simple matter of rather than 5-line entries for those routes, you can actually just create a group and have 1-line entry for the rates. Again, not very common, but we do have that ability if somebody thinks they might need it.
So if you create a group and, well, first of all, where would you create the group? Have you gone over that?
It would actually be a matter of, you would have to do it through an upload. That upload file, we'll go back to that real quick. Great, for example. It would be in the upload file. You can see here we have 2 items. It's a level 50 and level 20, where you can actually add a route group that just deals with it, pays all the delivery type the same amount, or a route group that pays the delivery type and product the same amount. So again, the most common thing, if people use them, the most common use is the level 50, where again, we use that example of the drop site. All the delivery types on those drop sites, all the Z1 home deliveries are all going to pay 50 cents on those routes. Again, and that group can contain 2 routes, it can contain 20 routes. There's no limit on how much can be in a group. But the thing there would be, if you set up a route group, if someday somewhere down the line you decide, you know what, out of those 20 routes, maybe 2 of them I need to pay differently now because maybe the mileage has increased. Well, at that point, you have to know to take them out of that route group, because if you edit the route group entry itself, you're not just changing the rate for just those 2 routes, you're changing it for all 20 of them. Or conversely, one of the other ways to manage that is rather than remove them from the group, you can certainly have that route group item listed and then put in 2 level 10 rates for those specific routes. So again, it's just a matter of, again, efficiency. Again, you can accomplish something with less data line items if need be.
Okay, so basically, let's say I created a route group 2, and I had 62202 to 62206 in that route group. Those are the route numbers.
Yep.
So where would I think I've missed something or we haven't gone over it. Where would I tell them that these are the routes that are in route group 2?
That is a separate configuration item that we would need to set up. Currently, that's a table that would be part of like the payroll setup data. We would need to get that information in advance. There will eventually be a UI built so that those route groups can be managed by the distributor. But currently, that would be data that have to be submitted to us, and we would have to populate that.
And then if those route groups change, they would just submit that change to you, and you would, I'm not going to use 202 on that route group anymore. Right. And you would just go in there and delete 202. Yep,
and that's correct. Yeah, they would, and obviously, we wouldn't want. Ideally, we wouldn't find out after the fact. Hopefully, it will be an advanced planning thing where they know they're planning on doing that. And also, if that happened, the one thing I would also tell them if they were going to do that is, okay, we're removing that from the group, but make sure you set up the appropriate rates outside of that group for that route to remove.
Right.
You know,
Okay.
kind of,
But that grouping is still something you guys have to set up for the time being.
yes, that is correct.
Okay.
And like I said, Mark, you'll find that's very rare. We've only had one distributor use that. We actually had a distributor who actually had they had one plant, but they had what they considered 4 territories. And in each territory, they actually did pay different rates, but it was by the territory. So rather than, in this particular case, rather than make, I think he had 100 routes, rather than make 100 line entries, he opted to make 4 route groups and just had 4 videos of data. And that's fine.
And actually, I know that in Dayton, there's currently a couple of distributors that would actually probably use that because they do groups of routes depending on the complexity, particularly for their drops, that might be, okay, all these routes are going to pay this, all these routes are going to pay this. So I can actually see where that might be used in that particular case.
Yeah, it just depends on, like you said, usually that's when that's kind of what we call a discovery meeting, when we talk to the distributors initially for any folks that we've dealt with. That's where kind of one of the questions we ask is, how are the routes structured? Do you have any scenario, we do bring up the route group scenario to them, and ask them, do you think you have any cases where you might use this? And again, it's not mandatory. Like I said, they can certainly enter the items individually if they feel more comfortable with that. And that's usually what I tell them. If they think there's going to be a lot of rate changes going on and off of those routes, it's probably simpler not to create the route group so they can just manage the changes right away, as opposed to, like you said, taking the route group out. They have to actually submit the request, which, again, doesn't take long to do. It's, it'll be done instantaneously almost once we get the request. But again, it is something that, if they want to manage their own system without worrying about, well, I got to make sure this is approved or submitted and the change went through before it goes into effect. A lot of folks just end up, just putting in the extra entries rather than create the group. But the system will allow.
Eventually, they'll be able to set up their own route groups.
Yes, that's correct. That is something that I do know is. I don't think we're currently developing at the second, but it is on the list of items that is I'll say, to-do list, for lack of a better term. That's something here.
Yeah, we have a lot of those to-do lists.
Yeah, no. Ultimately, the developers, obviously, if we submit a change, the developers have to actually populate the tables, and developers are developers. They shouldn't be doing what's considered general maintenance. So just for the sheer fact of they don't want to do that maintenance, they will build the UI. we know that will happen. And again, I'm teasing. I've actually used on the call. I'm teasing her a little bit. But again, basically, we want those people concentrating on all the complex developing of the web pages and all the programming, and not the day-to-day maintenance of someone maintaining routes. That's obviously something that we want the distributor to be able to do that and not have to submit requests.
Right. Okay.
Yep. So, okay. Any questions on the route groups? All right. We'll close that out then. Okay. Now I'm going to jump into the pay by address section. This is, I think I touched on it earlier. We actually, during our initial demo, our system has the ability to actually pay bulk drops by a location or address. What happens is anytime an address comes in our system, it's categorized with a unique, what we call CAT ID number, CAT standing for Central Address Table. So 10 Main Street may be categorized as address 1, CAT ID 1. 11 Main Street, CAT ID number 2, so forth and so on. And obviously you can see we'll have millions of CAT ID based on everyone's addresses. And what our system does is, if you have a case where one of those addresses happens to perhaps be a store or a hotel or something like that, where we're dropping off multiple publications and different amounts, it could be the same publication, a bulk drop of one paper of 40 copies, or it could be 3 different publications of 10 copies each. What our system can do is actually total up the number of copies at that address, and then pay either a flat rate amount or what we call a scaled rate amount. Now, I'm going to go to the pay by address section in this demo plan here, so I'm just going to switch over to the radio button and click on search. The 2 ways to actually pay something are, like I said, we'll use the most common example of a basic hotel drop. USA Today is very popular paper in hotels. If you ever stayed in a hotel, a lot of times you wake up in the morning, there's USA Today sitting right in front of your door. So again, somebody actually has to drop off those papers, and usually, obviously, the hotel has to spread them out in most cases. So there may be a bundle drop of maybe 40 to 80 copies. Now, rather than paying, if the carrier's rate is 10 cents per paper, rather than paying $8, which would be 80 times 10 cents, you could come up with what's called a flat rate price if you want, meaning that the system will automatically, based on that CAD ID address or CAD ID number, will total up the number of copies and say, okay, no matter how many copies, whether it's one copy, 1,000 copies, I'm going to pay a flat rate price. And you can see here this example on the screen right here for this one line item. I use the WSJC product code here. Basically, it's set to pay 50 cents for Monday through Saturday for any kind of drop. So again, any product that delivery type Z1 of this publication will end up paying 50 cents per drop. And it doesn't matter how many papers the carrier actually drops off there. Now, there is a table that this is part of what we went over on Monday. There is what we call a pay by address exception table, meaning if we do have any of these drops, we do need to know the delivery type, product, and route combination beforehand, because we have to set that table up to tell the system whenever you find that combination, refer to the pay by address rates rather than the pay by copy rates. So that is one of the criteria that needs to be set up, and that does need to be set up in advance. Once the system starts running, changing something back in history for pay by address sometimes can be a little bit difficult in the sense that we have processes that run every day that total up all the accounts at that address based on pay by address exception. If we don't have that exception in there and that particular process already ran for the day, trying to undo that and then redo it again is a little bit of a development trick. They can pull it off, but we prefer not to do that. So again, if there ever is a change where someone wants to change the pay by address information in the exception table, again, we do like to get a little bit of advance warning on it. So again, so this will be a line entry for if, again, we wanted to pay someone a flat rate price. Now, the system also has the ability to pay what's called a scaled rate, meaning we'll use that same scenario. We have a USA Today being dropped off at a hotel. And obviously, a hotel vacancy fluctuates. Maybe one day they have 40 copies. Maybe on the weekend they have 100 copies. So the amount of copies the carrier drops off there may vary, and you may actually want to pay them differently because of that. So maybe you actually want to pay them by the bundle. We'll use that example. Maybe for every bundle of 40 they deliver, they get paid 50 cents. So we can actually set a scale up so that if the carrier delivers 1 through 40 copies of an address, they make 50 cents. If they deliver 41 through 80, they make $1, which is 2 times 50 cents, and so forth and so on. Now, basically, the way that would be entered into the system, it's a two-part entry. The first thing you would need to do is actually create a scale, and the second thing would have to be to actually refer that particular delivery type, product, and route combination to that scale. And you can see that's what we have here in line 2. Basically, with the Wall Street Journal, the rates all say 0, which can be deceptive, but this is where you see where the scale ID actually has number 1 in it. So what that's saying is whenever any Z2 Wall Street Journals come in, that's WSJC, for those of you who don't know, it will refer to actually the pay by address, and it will actually know to actually pay out that scale. Now, the scale part is actually in another selection. We go to DSP Comp. We go to rate scale. We'll wait for the page to load up. Again, I'm just going to click on search. There should only be one scale on this plant. Basically, in this case, we actually have a scale set up so that if 1 to 10 copies is delivered, the carrier will pay 35 cents every day of the week. If they deliver from 11 to 24, it's 50 cents. And basically, anything from 25 or over, they make a flat rate of $1.25. So again, basically, the more copies the carrier delivers, the more money they make. Obviously, the scales themselves can be anything you want. You can see we have some buttons over here. We can add a level. We can edit an existing one, or we can delete one. For instance, if I felt that this particular item right here, where the 25 through 999, $1.25, maybe I want to put in another level that said, well, from 26 to 50, I want to pay maybe $1.50. So I can certainly add minimum 26, maximum 50, and let's say we want to pay $1.50. Oops. Okay, so we will actually save that. Of course, you always get a confirmation message whenever you add something. And now what you can see here is whenever you go to add something, the system does try to anticipate what you're actually trying to do. Now, since I added it right there, you remember before we had something that said 25 through 9999. Now we have 26 through 50. So this is a case where once I add a line, I may have to go back and do some editing again. Depends on how much advanced thought you have. So let's say we want to go into edit mode. In this case, I now want to, for the $1.25, I would edit. I want to make this 25 through 50. Update that line. And then we edit this one. We go 51 through 9999. Update that. And now we actually save. Now, whenever you save, of course, you get your confirmation window saying what you actually changed. And confirm. And now you see we now have our items listed there. So the important thing of whatever you do with scale is to make sure you have all your minimum and maximums. Obviously it makes sense. 1 to 10, if that's the maximum of 10, your next line item should start at 11. 24, next line item 25, 50, 51. And then ultimately, eventually you probably want to cap something off. Again, you can cap it off at 400 if you wanted to. Just keep in mind, if you do have a number in there like 400, if ever there is a very large drop, every once in a while a product does have a large drop for a convention. If you have a scale rate that only goes up to 400 and the carrier delivers 450, the system is going to say, I have no rate listed for 450, it's going to pay 0. So that's why that last rate, we always put in something like, 9,999, something along those lines, to make sure we count the fact that we'll, capture any very large drops and the carrier will pay for it. And of course, if you want to delete an item, it's simply a matter of clicking on the X button to actually delete. And you can upload scales. Again, we do have an upload feature. It would be a CSV file. Uploading them, again, pretty basic. You would select the pay group. The system automatically chooses the next scale in succession. So right now we only have one scale on this plan. It knows to pick number 2. I would browse for the file, choose the effective date, click on upload. Once it uploads, again, I'll get a confirmation screen. And once I like the confirmation screen, I would click confirm or cancel. I actually don't have a scale ID uploaded handy, so we'll cancel that. So again, usually the process whenever someone does go do the bulk scales, the usual process is to enter the scales first. Now, a plant may have more than one scale, and that's fine. Once you enter all the scales, again, like in this case, we have 1 through 10, 11 through 24. Maybe you do want to do that scale that does bundles of 40, or maybe you have a scale that's bundles of 50. You put those scales in, and basically, ultimately, each scale is assigned an ID number. And then if we go back to our rates, by address, that's a matter of, again, at that point, we choose what scale we want the particular product, delivery type, and route combination to be on, and we assign it that scale. And that's basically how pay by address works. So you do have the two options there. You can play a flat rate, what we call a drop rate, and that's listed right here. Or you can pay a scaled rate where the rates will appear to be 0, and then you actually have a scale number where you have to refer to the scale ID page. Okay, any questions on the bulk? Or excuse me, not bulk, pay by address? That's incorrect.
Yeah, so I guess one thing I don't quite understand yet is on the delivery, on the top one, we're looking at the delivery type Z1.
Right.
I thought that was the home delivery code.
Oh, yes, it is. This is just a sample plant. The data we have coming into this plant, I think only actually has, excuse me, it only actually has Z1 deliveries coming into it as far as our test data.
Okay.
So what
the
only reason, normally you would not see a Z1 bulk rate in most cases.
Okay, all right. That's what that was throwing me off.
Yeah. No, the only reason I have that mark is when I go to show you some compensation reports, I needed to put a rate in so that when the compensation calculated, since we only have Z1 delivery types coming into this plant, I needed an item to put in at Z1 to show you how it will show up in the compensation reports.
Okay.
That's the only there. But correct. Normally you would see something like Z2. The most common things you see the bulk assigned to are the Z2, which is the bulk, single copy, Z5, which is the schools, and the hotel codes, which are ZA through ZD as in David. We have 4 different hotel codes. So those are the ones you most commonly see. Again, it can literally, though, the scales, you can use a scaled rate for anything. And in theory, you could actually use a scale rate for residential customers too. If you do want to put in if you have a subscriber that if your warehouse delivers, 6 or 7 publications, and you have a subscriber who actually gets 4 out of those 7 publications, normally from the PCF standpoint, we always pay the carrier, home delivery. We just paid them how many copies you deliver, you get paid your rate. But in theory, you could actually set up a scale rate for a single-family residential home too. Hey, they get 4 publications, the carrier's already there. Maybe I don't want to pay them 25 cents, per paper, which is $1 total. Maybe I want to cap that off somehow at, if they deliver 1, it's 25. They deliver 2, maybe they get only 37. They deliver 3, maybe they get 50, and they deliver 4, they get 60 cents.
Yeah,
so
we
theory,
actually, we had a distributor here in Atlanta that did that. They got an AJC and a Wall Street Journal. They didn't get the same price for the AJC. They got a lower price for the Wall Street Journal because they're already there.
Yep. So again, it's not common, like you said, again, it's not very common to see it on residential, but it can be done, and our system will account for that. It's just a matter of, again, putting in the appropriate scale and assigning it to the proper, delivery type, product route combination. Again, if it's only on a specific route, we just, make sure that that route has that in there so that the system knows to refer to a scale for that particular combination.
Okay.
Yeah, like I said, not very common, but again, we do know there are cases like that. When I used to deliver, the most papers I think I ever threw at one residential house was, I think, 4. Again, to your point, it was a financial person. They got like the Wall Street Journal, they got the Financial Times, they got the Investor Business Daily, and I think there was a 4th publication we were delivering at the time too that had financial news in it. So you knew he was some sort of investor, but he did get everything, and again, it was a nice, easy delivery, and PCS made the business call that we were just going to pay per copy, even if they got more than 1 publication. That was our decision.
Yeah, and that's what most of them do, I think.
Yeah.
But there are a couple out there that are trying to, do other things.
And that's obviously that will, that is a way to maximize your compensation, because from the standpoint of the deliverer's standpoint, they have to go there either way, whether they're dropping off 1 or 5. So again, they're going there anyway, so it's not costing them anymore to deliver more. But from the compensation point, a distributor could, maybe save a little bit of money or make a little more profit by not paying them the full amount each, for each publication multiple they deliver.
Right.
So that's as we said, that's where our system, as I said, you can get as complex as you want or as simplistic as you want. Our system will actually handle that as needed. So.
Could you go back to the rate scale?
Mm-hmm. Certainly.
And I noticed there were the secondary filters.
That would just be a matter of, again, we can actually put in scales. You can actually have a scale for a certain product, again, for a route. Again, this is a very simplistic, our demo environment here for this one particular plant. We just have the most very basic scale that you could have in there. Again, you can actually enter scales and make them specific to products or routes if need be. Again,
right, so if USA Today had a different rate for bulk and Wall Street Journal could have a different rate.
Right.
Is that what you're saying?
Correct. Yep. And again, if you leave it as just a generic delivery type, like in most cases, what PCF usually ends up doing is we do it just by delivery type. Meaning if we're going to an address and we're dropping off Z2 bulk and it's USA Today and Wall Street Journal mixed, we total them up so that the system considers it one product totals. 40 of Wall Street, 40 of USA Today, 80 copies were delivered Z2s at that address. So we set up a rate to say, okay, we're going to pay for 80 copies of that address. And again, whether it's a drop or scaled rate, but you could, in theory, actually break that apart by products so that the system knows, hey, those 40 USA Todays pay this scale at this address, Wall Street Journal pay a different scale, and again, it'll total it all up. Again, it's not very common in our world. It's not to say it doesn't happen, but usually we try to keep it simple with the scales. If they were dropping off that, we usually found it's mostly businesses and schools, and it's simple just to pay. It's almost always one delivery type. It was simpler just to pay, set up the scale rate at the delivery type.
Okay.
But it is
thanks.
there. And like I said, certainly, again, like you said, this is a very generic plant, so we didn't get very complex in here. We don't like demonstrating all the advanced features and scaring people off because they think everything's too complicated. So, but like I said, our system will handle that. It's just a matter of what the distributor's needs are and knowing what those needs are to help guide them into how to set it up right so the compensation pays out the way they need.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions on any of the pay-by-address items? If not, that pretty much wraps up what we wanted to go through today as far as rates. Again, we do have the ability, like I said, to upload, enter them one at a time, or edit them through the web page. There's no right or wrong. if it's just a simple, if you're negotiating on one route and you have one rate change on the route, it's very easy to do it through the web page. If you have a major restructure going on where maybe you're changing rates on 10 or 20 routes, probably upload's the way to go. And the very nice thing about our rates are, if you go to the rate entry page, once you do a search for the rates, again, we do have an export feature here. You can export it to Excel. And once you have this data into Excel, again, you don't quite have the exact match for upload format, but you can see here, if I exported this data, I have delivery type, route, product, and if I needed to create some sort of edit or change, most of those columns are right in the upload file itself. You see, I have the rates Monday through Friday. There's a scale, route, product, delivery. So again, if you export the data first, then you make your changes and just you copy and paste the items you need to into the upload file and then just upload them. So again, it's not an exact match for exporting the data. The export format is not an exact match for the upload format, but it's about 90% close. So again, you just have to worry about really this column here, putting in the plant number and whether it's paid by address or paid by copy. Everything else, pretty much you can just copy and paste almost right into the file here. So that most distributors find that very useful when they go to make a large change. It's easy to export everything first, work on it, and then just paste the items back into the upload file format. All right, that should wrap it up for today then. Any final questions for anybody?
Nothing on my end.
Nope, I'm
All right,
good.
I'm going to